Good morning, St. Francis. Good morning, people of God. It is Tuesday, the first day of July, the month of July 2025, Tuesday of the 13th week of the year, 13th week in Ordinary Time. It is also the day on the Franciscan calendar in which we honor Junipero Serra, sometimes called the founder of California, a very controversial figure, became a saint recently. But again, did he destroy indigenous lifestyle to be able to proclaim the faith? Did he have too much of a strident and a kind of aggressive penitential spirituality, which was not healthy for him or for the people to whom he ministered? Did he do good in the end, though? Did he establish, get some kind of help for indigenous peoples along the California coast? Again, founded all those missions up and down the Camino Real, again, the way of the king, meaning Jesus, and founded all these kinds of things. But again, a controversial figure. A couple of years ago, many statues of his were pulled down because again, his legacy is not always clean. It is not neat, as anybody's legacy is. But remember him again, and the work that he did do. He did in many ways try to protect some of the indigenous peoples from the harassment of Spanish officials and of the government of the King of Spain. But did he do enough to honor their lifestyle and the way in which they lived and worked the land and their economy and their agriculture and whatever it is? There may have been a little bit of a mess, within all of this. Some people may say a lot of a mess, and so we have to take him again always with the understanding of his humanity as well as his sanctity, within all of that. And so here again, still in Arizona though, to celebrate this, Phoenix Mountains are behind me. There is a bit of a haze. This is the Guadalupe Shrine, one side on this side, and then if you go around to over here, and I know that this is probably coming out almost at lunchtime, but here it's a breakfast time, and there's a Guadalupe Shrine over here. Again, and one of the this bronze statue right over there. Is that where it is? Yeah, bronze statue right over there. One of an indigenous woman. Again, having washed her hair, whatever it is. And so again, in contemplation of the image of Guadalupe over there. Going just down over here, you can see that even Camelback Mountain is in a little bit of a haze. The monsoon season is beginning, and so it's a bit. It's going to be a bit more humid, again, if we were to stay here, and a bit more, and then the rains begin like that. We're also doing some work over here. So anyway, so this is your morning look at the casa at the Franciscan Renewal Center here in Arizona. But our readings for today, Genesis continues now with Lot being told he needs to escape the city of Sodom because God is going to destroy it, and Lot basically saying, I'm too old, I can't go to those mountains, just kill me right now. And God basically saying, well, here, go to this next city, or Lot says, can I go to this little city over here, will you save that? And God says, oh, okay, I guess I can do that. And the city of Zor is saved from the destruction because Lot runs there. Again, however, as the destruction begins to rain down, Lot and his wife and everybody are told not to look back, and unfortunately his wife does, and pillar of salt business. Again, the Dead Sea, against tradition would hold, is the remnant, again, of that destruction. Again, that whole plain in which the Dead Sea resides, again, is where Sodom and Gomorrah supposedly were before God rained down destruction upon them. Again, even to say it like that, a God who rains down destruction, a God who destroys things like this, again, without having mercy or compassion or the chance for a people to redeem themselves or to repent and to change their way of life. Again, always this big question of what's going on and what's happening, within this. But the whole idea is that God saves Abraham and his family, again, from this destruction, so they may go on again to become, this great nation and this great people that is God's own possession. Again, to read Genesis, one has to be careful, always, so that it doesn't become, again, these kinds of facts that sort of miss and mix with other ideas that come from the New Testament of who God is and what have you. There's much that needs to be thought about and reflected upon when we take a look at Genesis, because it is not history per se, and it raises lots of questions about the kind of God that was understood to be God at the time of the writing of Genesis. Be that as it may, there is the sense in which, again, God's plan of caring for Abraham and his family to create a great nation out of this family remains firm. And again, the way in which God acts within this, again, is perhaps more a way in which we as human beings want God to act, which Jesus then clarifies in his own earthly ministry. Matthew's gospel then opens up again with the disciples on a boat in a storm, and it's all bad, and Jesus doesn't seem to be doing anything, and they scream out, "We're perishing, Lord, help us!" And Jesus basically saying, because I think he's asleep. That's it, he's asleep. And Jesus basically saying, why are you screaming and crying out? You of little faith. Again, and Jesus calms the waves, and Jesus calms the storm, and they're just amazed at this. Do they thank him? That's always the question to ask. It's like, is it just this whole kind of panic? Jesus does something to fix the panic. Do they thank him? Are they grateful for that, or are they just amazed, that the sun or that the winds and the rain obey him, and will calm themselves down? Again, in our own lives, we have to ask the question. We cry out, "Lord, Lord," all the time, as Jesus says all the time. But what are we actually crying out for? And do we just want magical things? Do we want to be wrapped in a bubble? Do we want everything that's bad about us to just disappear and run away? Or do we want something, that's actually going to help our lives live in trust, live in hope, live in wonder, live in beauty that can only come from God, that can only come from Christ? Because if we're looking in that way, if we're looking for those kinds of things, well, then God satisfies that and allows us to grow and become even more glorious and wonderful, than we already are. A blessed day, St. Francis and people of God. May the Lord give you his peace.